Good morning. Today I plan to start with the next topic, which is leveraging linguistics in your class 11 syllabus. So let's start. I'm sharing my screen. See, basically in this particular chapter, they have been discussing about the, what do you call it, the NLP domain. So what all are there? What all aspects does the machine has to worry about when it is working on the applications for the NLP domain, and what are the difficulties, what are the challenges, what is the process, basic process they follow. Okay, this is what the chapter basically is focusing upon, right? So this is how it starts, unlocking the secrets of NLP. So basic things about the working of the entire NLP models. Okay, so we all understand by now that this is a branch of AI which is basically concerned with understanding, creating, manipulating the human speech and text. So whether I'm writing a letter, whether I'm making the system write a letter for me, whether I am typing something in Google, whether I am speaking something and it is converting that. And so it's like speech to text, text to speech, or where we type and it picks up the text, guesses what I'm trying to type. All that is something which is language based. So machine is able to understand what I'm writing, what I'm saying, what I'm speaking, and based on that, it is able to suggest me things or work accordingly. Okay, that's why we say it is acting as a bridge between the complex human communication and structured computer processing. So we have to process the languages. A languages has a lot of aspect, because I'm not only talking about English, I'm talking about all other languages nowadays, because systems nowadays understand and work with almost all sorts of languages, barring maybe certain very offbeat, or you may say mm, local languages, very, very local languages. But overall, so many languages which have been spoken throughout the world, they have been taken care of, that the machine is able to understand the dialect, the features, the complexities of those languages to a great extent. And I would say that even maybe since COVID, it's hardly been 4 years, I believe. So things have drastically changed and improved. Earlier, when we would do a text to speech, or we would do a uh, typing, texting, anything related to the NLP application, then in that case, the output was not that great. But now things are much more improvised. Though still, I would not say it is 100% correcting, but yes, to a great extent, the things have been improving. So obviously, we've been using this particular feature in various tools, like when you do web searching, when you do you work with your virtual assistants like Siri or Alexa, or wherever you're doing a translation, language translation, or speech to text, as I was saying, or the machine itself is reading your text and doing something like email spam filtering. So the email is coming and it is reading the subject or the content, and based on that, it is deciding whether it is a spam mail or not. Okay, so these are the common tools where this domain is coming into play. As I was talking about, categorizing the applications once again, it is basically used in places where you are searching vast amounts of data and you want to organize it, summarize it. Like nowadays, when you open the PDF reader, so they'll say this document is huge. Do you want some summarized points about it, or you want a summarized view of it? So how will it do it? So somebody has to read the whole thing, understand, interpret, and then summarize. No, isn't it? Or find for some information there, find for the required data from there. Because the bulk of unstructured information we get, that is also huge. We've studied about structured, some semi-structured, and unstructured data, which the machine or AI is learning, working with. So that is why we have to see these, we use these applications for organizing and searching vast amounts of data efficiently, fast, very, very fast. A human cannot process it so fast. It'll need time to read a book and summarize it. So the second obviously comes along with that itself, the automatic summarization. Then filtering, we have discussed just now that something when the mail is coming, your data is automatically sent to the spam folder. Okay, now how does that happen? So it is reading the text of the mail, it is reading the subject, something like you've been awarded this free gift or something. ऐसा कुछ आता है तो वो spam में डालता था. Any kind of advertisement is being advertising mail, I would say specifically. If that is coming in, so it is putting it as a spam mail. Okay. So like that. Then voice assistance is also something which is able to understand my language and interpret, get me data, play a song for me, or fix my appointments or do things like that. So it's something wherein I don't have to directly go and type in, I don't have to directly go and list out things. If I speak, he is able to understand and interpret. Right? So these are the real world applications which we are currently doing. We have been doing for a long time now. And then we see improvements there. Though email filtering also has problems at times. Some important mails also go into spam. But overall, I would say that these things are still effective. Okay. Now, why these problems arise? Basically, the problem is that language is very difficult for the machine to understand because words have multiple meanings. That is something which is a very, very typical thing in English, isn't it? Then you have, if you talk about the Gen Z language, it is very much messy and unstructured at times. It is not in a very, very tabular, structured format, right? That you can draw inferences out of it very fast and very easily. So that is another problem. Then comes the subtleties where we talk about there's sarcasm, there's humor, there's slang, there's all sorts of things clubbed up in our languages. So that is why it is difficult for the machine to understand the pattern at times. Okay. And of course, vague terms where we are talking about this kind of a thing, that a word run or runs is something which is talking about a nose running, also, it is talking about a person running on foot, right? So, smell is concerned to a lot of factors, a lot of places. So, there a lot of things which language actually has to, a language classifier or a language understanding model has to take care of. Otherwise, he will not be able to give me the correct output. Okay. So that's why it is difficult to work with the human languages as such, whether it is Hindi, English, or whatever it is. Now, this is a place where we start with the process. Now, okay, we understand that they are doing a good job for us. Second, there are difficulties. Okay. But then now we talk about the third part of it, that is exactly what are the concepts involved in designing an NLP model. If you talk about that, you think of designing an NLP model, so what all aspects will you have to check out? Okay. If I keep aside a language model for that matter here, if I would say like that, I can also correlate this to the computer programming language compiler. Okay, language compiler को भी जब एक प्रोग्राम दिया जाता है to convert it into a machine language, then what it is doing? It is able to, it is actually has to read every word of your program, whether it is print statement, whether it is break statement, whether it is for, whether it is ij, whether it is some numbers constant. So first thing जो है वो पूरे के पूरे प्रोग्राम को like divide करता है into different areas. Like here we talk about the word segmentation because the entire text is divided into sentences first. कि individual sentences मेरा एक target है to understand. So you may take that as the line of a program. So every line of a program is the thing which the compiler first takes up. That is why your errors come with line numbers, isn't it? Whether interpreter or whether compiler, they are telling you with the line number. So वो line by line पढ़ रहा है उस चीज को, and it is giving you the errors, isn't it? That in this line I cannot understand what is this word, or this is a misplaced text here, or this is a misplaced specification which I don't understand as per the syntax of the code. So similarly, what happens is that when I talk about anything concerning a text which I'm talking of, so first step goes into segmentation. So first thing is that I would be actually talking about dividing my data into sentences. Okay. Once my data has been divided up into sentences, which is the process of segmentation, I proceed further and then I start picking up um, every word or punctuation mark or even number, everything, single aspect of a sentence. And that I define as a token. Okay. So that I'm going to pick up one by one as a token because that is what it has to understand. Like I'm saying, there is a print statement. Now, that print statement you're saying in a program, print brackets, and then you have put a quotes that the value is, and then you close the quotes, and then you put a comma, and then you put a variable b, and then you close the bracket. In this case, what it has to understand is first of all, print is a technical term for him. Then there is something in the quotes which is a text for him. That whatever in the quotes comes as it is. Then there's a comma which works like a concatenation operator for me. Then there is a variable I think I said B. So that is a variable which should be available. That data should be there in that. है ना पता चले B कैपिटल B में ऊपर डिफाइन किया हुआ है यहाँ पे स्मॉल b में काम कर रहे हो so it is able to then prompt you with the error. So it is going actually word by word into your written data, into your sentences in order to understand every aspect of it. Even the compiler does work like that and it is able to prompt you with the error. Even if in Python your print goes a little right side of from the main area, if you are just not having any loops and all, you just direct आप लिख रहे हो इस चीज को सो इंडेंट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट सो वो आपका थोड़ा सा भी इनसाइड होगा तो विल से दैट इट इज अ मिसप्लेस्ड इंडेंट नॉट करेक्टली इंडेंटेड है ना तो इसका मतलब एवरी स्पेस एवरी कॉमा एवरी ब्रैकेट एवरी word you're writing in a sentence in a line there I would talk about a line in the program so it is able to break that thing and understand it one by one. I mean it has to understand it one by one then only it will be able to find out the error and ask you to rectify. ठीक है ना similarly the NLP model is also taking up those tokens into consideration and then अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि भाई ये क्या है लाइक हम सबसे पहले एक सेंटेंस को डिवाइड करते हैं इनटू सब्जेक्ट एंड प्रेडिकेट है ना सो टॉम इज ईटिंग फ्रूट सो टॉम इज माय सब्जेक्ट एंड ही इज ईटिंग फ्रूट इज माय प्रेडिकेट तो सबसे पहले वो उस चीज को एंटिटी और एंटिटीज निकालता है उसमें से लाइक दैट इज द नेक्स्ट थिंग सो आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट इन टर्म्स ऑफ सब्जेक्ट प्रेडिकेट here we talk about in terms of my entities, relationship and intents. तो उसने पहले sentences pick करे individual पूरा text में से sentences pick करे individually which I'm talking about as segmentation. Then हर sentence के individual उसने words or phrases को निकाला and calling it as tokens which is my tokenization process. And then वो उसको identify कर रहा है कि वो basically you may say that the parts of speech that whether it is a noun or a verb or an adverb or a adjective or a preposition or what because if something is not placed then properly it will give you an as an error or nowadays when we type it in any place we are typing up text so you have the grammarly or something prompting you to improvise your sentence because he thinks the way you've written is not the right way or you have a better way of putting it up. You may ignore or you may accept that thing. That option is always there, but then it prompts you. ठीक है इसका मतलब वो आपके सेंटेंस के मीनिंग को समझ पा रहा है वो कभी आपको प्रॉम्प्ट नहीं कर सकता विद अ बेटर सेंटेंस अगर उसको समझ ही नहीं पा रहा कि वो क्या है व्हाट आर यू ट्राइंग टू कन्वे है ना so to understand that what are you trying to convey it has to first understand the basic aspects of it and those basic aspects here we put up as entities, relationships, and intents. Okay. So, of course, this is very much in deep, but then we are talking about at very superficial level. So here, if I say that these three things are the major aspects which the machine is working on. So entities become the nouns, the name of the person, name of the place, or name of anything. ठीक है. सो वो उसको निकालेगा कि इसमें एक देयर इज अरुण, देयर इज नेम ऑफ पर्सन, देन देयर इज अ एप्पल. इफ आई एम सेइंग अरुण इज ईटिंग एप्पल सिटिंग ऑन अ टेबल. Okay, so there's a table, so that's a thing, or an apple, that's a thing. Then there's this person called as Arun. Fine, so वो उसमें से वो एंटिटीज को फेच करेगा, फिर वो देखेगा कि भाई अरुण एंड एप्पल एंड टेबल, हाउ आर दे लिंक्ड. Fine, so that we are calling as the connections. Then it talks about the intents also, and technically intents is basically here कि वो verb और action को जैसे लिंक कर रहा है. Eating, so sitting, these two are the things which are really behaving as the intent here, verb or the action. ठीक है. So why are we needing this in terms like this? Because when we talk about chatbots, in chatbots every word has to be understood and accordingly answered, isn't it? और अगर वो नहीं कर पाता उसको कोरिलेट, तो वो आपको बोलता है I'm sorry that I'm not able to understand what you're saying, or maybe is replying back with a phrased answer that okay, ऐसा 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 है, so now see what you want to do. Right. So that is why in those terms also we talk in terms of entities, relationships, and intents. Okay, from the tokens, what it has devised from after doing the segmentation. So that is how the process works. So taking an example here. Okay, let's do this first. The phases in which they have really discussed this particular entire thing is they are saying that lexical analysis, syntactical analysis, semantic analysis, discourse integration and pragmatic analysis. ये आपके 5 phases हैं NLP के, जिसमें कि वो काम करता है, जिस प्रोसेस से वो काम करता है. ठीक है. So these are all technical terms and they all mean different. We have to understand them and we should be able to implement them also. Answer back accordingly in the exam too. Okay, so these terms are very important to understand. Few we have actually seen, learned, heard about in programming language also, like syntax, semantics. These things are applicable for a language compiler also, because after all, वो programming language को समझ के interpret कर रहा है, right? And here we are talking about understanding human languages and interpreting it. Why human language interpretation becomes so difficult and computer language interpretation is not that difficult? Because human language has or human language doesn't always follow the rules. When you talk about slangs, when you talk about sarcasm, the way it is being written, so it may not follow the syntax or the rules very properly, right? Then you have double meanings of words in our languages, which is not there in the case of computer language. So that is why these problems are more prevalent, or they are actually creating more trouble, confusion for the machine when you talk about human languages as compared to computer languages. Computer languages में the rules are fixed. You cannot go here and there. वो चलेगा ही नहीं. ठीक है. बट इंग्लिश में तो हम कुछ भी बोलते हैं, या लैंग्वेज में हम थोड़ा बहुत इधर उधर बोलते हैं, फिर भी उसका एक मीनिंग दूसरे यूजर को समझ में आ जाता है कि अच्छा ठीक है, वो कुछ ऐसा बोलना चाह रहा है ना, हम उसमें से कंक्लूड कर लेते हैं. सो वही चीज अगर प्रॉपरली लाइक आप नहीं बोल पा रहे हो, तो मशीन को नहीं समझ में आ रहा है, या वो भी उसमें से जो सीख के ही इज एबल टू इंटरप्रेट. Sometimes may be wrong, sometimes may be partially correct, sometimes may be fully correct. Okay, so that is what we have to see. So all these aspects are being done in a programming language thing also, because you're understanding those languages and getting you the output. But when you talk about a human language, then what all more things are applicable here? Okay. So the first part which we have done in the previous slide, where we were talking about tokenization, that is basically my lexical analysis, that examining the word structure and breaking the text into tokens. So वो first stage है, and that is what is called as my lexical analysis. So that is the first thing. Until unless it is able to come down to a particular phrase or a word or a token, इट कैन नॉट वर्क फर्दर. पहले वो टोकन्स निकालेगा, फिर टोकन्स को आइडेंटिफाई करेगा, फिर उनके रिलेशनशिप को देखेगा, तभी वो चीज को समझ सकता है. ठीक है. देन कम्स द सिंटैक्टिकल एनालिसिस. सिंटैक्टिकल एनालिसिस बेसिकली टॉक्स अबाउट द ग्रामर, कि वेदर योर ग्रामर हैज बीन properly used, like I'm saying a subject verb object pattern, that has been used properly or not. Like I'm saying subject verb object is generally that I'm saying Anil is eating an apple. है ना? So Anil is the subject, eating is the verb, and apple is my object. ठीक है, तो सब्जेक्ट वर्ब ऑब्जेक्ट इज द करेक्ट वे ऑफ पुटिंग थिंग्स. तो वो ऑलमोस्ट उसी फॉर्मेट में उसको चेक करेगा. ऑलमोस्ट नहीं, मतलब वो उसी फॉर्मेट में उसको चेक करेगा. वो करेक्टली रिटन होगा तो वो उसी फॉर्मेट में होगा इन सिंपल सेंटेंसेस. द मोमेंट द प्रॉब्लम अराइजेस व्हेन योर सेंटेंस इज आल्सो बिग इनफ एंड इट हैज लॉट ऑफ अदर एस्पेक्ट्स टू इट टू, और मल्टीपल वर्ब्स आर देयर और मल्टीपल ऑब्जेक्ट्स आर देयर, जिसको फिर उसको समझने में थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम होता है. बट इज अ सिंपल वन, इट विल नॉट क्रिएट अ प्रॉब्लम. बट सिंटैक्टिकल एनालिसिस इज बेसिकली ग्रामर चेकिंग. ठीक है ना? इवन इन आवर प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज ऑल्सो सिंटैक्स एरर इज बेसिकली द rule of grammar rule of the language. So if there's a syntax error, I know that it is a format problem, syntactical problem, which is the rule of the language has been not followed properly. ठीक है कि भाई फॉर लूप में कॉमा आता है इन द रेंज, या हाफ सर्कल क्लोज होता है, हाफ सर्कल ओपन होता है. इट्स नॉट अ स्क्वायर ब्रैकेट इन द फॉर लूप. और लिस्ट में इट इज नॉट अ स्क्वायर, नॉट अ हाफ सर्कल, इट इज अ स्क्वायर ब्रैकेट. तो इस तरह के रूल्स जो आपके डिफाइंड है, if the machine is checking that, then I'm calling it a syntactical analysis. तो इसको सेकेंडली उसको वो करना है. once the syntax has been, कि ठीक है उसने आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया, ठीक है, लाइक वी सॉ इन द प्रीवियस स्लाइड दैट उसने एंटिटीज निकाल ली, अपने रिलेशनशिप्स में निकाल लिए, ऑब्जेक्ट को भी आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया. नाउ आता है द एक्चुअल मीनिंग पार्ट में, राइट? द सिमेंटिक एनालिसिस की एक्चुअली इज द सेंटेंस मेकिंग एनी सेंस, because he has to frame the sentence also. I'm always talking about in my example that he's reading my data, but he has to frame it back for me. You know, he's replying in the Google. If I type something to him, he's replying back in the correct English format also with the correct answer also. तो उसने उस चीज को समझा, इंटरप्रेट किया, फिर जाके आंसर ढूंढा और फिर मुझे लाके लिख के भी दिखाया. That this is how it is. So उसको semantically उस चीज को भी represent करना है. तो he has to understand not only for reading the text, he has to understand the semantics for writing it back to. ठीक है, तो semantics is the meaning, logically correct. Like I can give you a example of computer language also. I'm saying a is equal to 10 is the correct way. And I say that assign the value 10 into a. Right. Now, if you talk about a statement which is 10 equal to a, right? Now 10 is equal to a is not a syntactically incorrect statement. मतलब अगर वो tokens निकालेगा इसमें से, तो 10 is a constant. ठीक है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. न्यूमेरिक है, मैंने कोट्स नहीं डाला. अगर स्ट्रिंग होता तो मैं कोट्स भी डाल देती उसके अंदर. बट जो भी न्यूमेरिक वैल्यू है जो कि करेक्ट है, पाइथन एक्सेप्ट करता है उसको. सो 10 भी ठीक है. इक्वल टू इज एन ऑपरेटर. मैंने ऐसा कोई ऑपरेटर नहीं यूज करा जो इनवैलिड ऑपरेटर है. इक्वल टू इज ऑल्सो एन ऑपरेटर एंड ए इज एन आइडेंटिफायर, जिसको वो देख रहा है कि भाई मैंने डिफाइन करना है उस आइडेंटिफायर को. एंड तो तीनों चीजें अगर आप इसको एक टोकन्स में देखो, है ना, तो तीनों चीजें इज अंडरस्टैंडेबल फॉर द सिस्टम. ही इज एबल टू पुट इट अंडर अंडर दोज हेडिंग्स कि भाई अच्छा ये एक वेरिएबल है, ये मेरा ऑपरेटर है, ये मेरा वैल्यू है या कॉन्स्टेंट है. ठीक है, तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होना चाहिए. बट इट इज सिमेंटिकली रॉन्ग. वाई? बिकॉज in the case of assignment, the thing works as right to left. और आपने लेफ्ट साइड में आपको कांस्टेंट दे दिया है, राइट साइड में आपने वेरिएबल दिया है. सो वो काम नहीं करेगा, वो नहीं कर सकता. इट डजंट मेक अ लॉजिकल सेंस. ओके, सो in your language also, that is why, your human language also, that is why the actual meaning has to be ensured, that it is actually being able to give you a sensible answer. He is able to understand the sense of the sentence you are writing or you are trying to write or he is trying to write. Fine. The semantic talks about the meaning. Syntax talks about the grammar rule. ठीक है. Then there's one more thing which we call here discourse integration. The name is very difficult, a very different kind of a term you feel, but इसका meaning बहुत simple है, that it tries to understand your it, they, like that is referring to the previous sentence, and उसमें से वो meaning निकाल सकता है कि okay, this it means the cat or it means the dog or it means the ball, whatever. Fine. So that is your discourse integration, understanding the context based ऑन द प्रिसीडिंग सेंटेंस, कि आपने पीछे कुछ लिखा है उसके बेसिस पे आप कह रहे हो कि इट वेंट टू द हॉल और इट वेंट स्लाइडिंग ओवर द स्नो, व्हाटएवर, so that it means what, or they were found together after the meeting, whatever it is. So they का मतलब क्या है, किसको रेफर करना, because that is also significant for the machine to understand. In the language, they might not be relevant in a programming language, but in a human language, this, it, they, he, she, है ना? So that is important thing. बहुत ही जरूरी है, अदरवाइज, बिकॉज इट्स अ पैराग्राफ, इट्स गॉट 10 sentences, 10 sentences में आपने मेन जो सब्जेक्ट है उसको फर्स्ट सेंटेंस में लिखा, उसके बाद यू आर मूविंग अप ऑलवेज विद दैट ही और शी और इट और दे, वट एवर, फॉर एवरी ऑब्जेक्ट और एवरी सब्जेक्ट यू हैव डिफाइंड इन द फर्स्ट सेंटेंस, राइट? सो इफ इट इज अनेबल टू डू द प्रीसीडिंग सेंटेंसेस का रेफरेंस लेके, इफ इट इज नॉट एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई द वैल्यू फॉर इट, तो उसके सारे सेंटेंसेस गलत आएंगे, isn't it? बिकॉज उसमें उसको मिला ही नहीं, सब्जेक्ट वर्ब ऑब्जेक्ट का कॉन्टेक्स्ट ही नहीं मिला, राइट? सो दैट इज व्हाई डिस्कोर्स इंटीग्रेशन इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इन आवर लैंग्वेज, राइट? आई मीन ह्यूमन लैंग्वेज अंडरस्टैंडिंग, दैट डजंट हैपन इन माई कंप्यूटर लैंग्वेज, बिकॉज कंप्यूटर लैंग्वेज में वो इट या देगा कोई कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है, आपको अगर ए को यूज करना तो आपको ए को ही लिखना पड़ेगा, है ना? So that doesn't apply there, but syntax semantic definitely applies in my, and even lexical, बिकॉज वो टोकन्स में डिवाइड करता है, पहले उसमें से सिंटैक्स चेक करता है, उसका सेमांटिक चेक करता है, तो इतना तो डेफिनेटली एप्लीकेबल है। और फिर आ जाता है हमारे लैंग्वेजेस में लॉजिकल एरर, जिसमें वो लॉजिक के टाइम पे, या रन टाइम एरर, सॉरी लॉजिक तो इसमें भी आ गया, रन टाइम एरर बेसिकली, कि मेरा सेंटेंस सब कुछ ठीक है, टोकन्स भी सही लिखे हुए हैं, द मीनिंग इज ऑल्सो वेरी क्लियर, बट अल्टीमेटली यूजर ने जो इनपुट दिया, इट लैंडेड अप इनटू अ प्रॉब्लम, लाइक डिवाइड बाय जीरो वाला, विच इज अ टिपिकल एग्जांपल ऑफ रन टाइम एरर, है ना? मैंने बी इज इक्वल टू A/4, A/0 लिखा है इन वट एवर, इन दैट एंटायर एक्सप्रेशन में भी समवेयर इट इज कमिंग एज डिवाइड बाय जीरो, तो या A/B है, एंड ए का इनपुट भी मैंने यूजर से लिया, बी का इनपुट भी मैंने यूजर से लिया, एंड बी इज गिवन बाय द यूजर बाय मिस्टेकनली या जीरो, और ही डजंट नो वट एवर इट इज, तो either your program should immediately tap that and say कि B में, because you will be using B in the denominator, you know that later. So you will tap and tell him that भैया in B it is not allowed. आप वहां पे चेक लगा सकते हो, बट लैंग्वेजेस में तो यूजर राइट्स, इट इज नॉट रियली वेटिंग फॉर द चेक्स, isn't it? So that is why these that thing is applicable there. But here the discourse integration is very very important. And then, of course, the pragmatic analysis also. Pragmatic analysis means studying the meaning in a specific context. Who said what to whom and why? Because context is something which human language is going to work with heavily. Because sentences are dependent on that. Okay, so these are the 5 types of analysis, which is a very, very important part of your NLP. Okay, I just repeat the names again because it is important from exam point of view also. Lexical, which is breaking the data into tokens. Syntactical, which is checking the grammar. You will talk about the subject verb object alignment. Then there's the semantic, where it is actually checking the meaning and it should make a logical sense. Right? Then have the discourse integration, where you talk about understanding the context with the previous sentence in reference to the previous sentence. एंड द प्रैग्मेटिक एनालिसिस, कि उस पूरी चीज का एक स्पेसिफिक कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्रिएट करना, कि हु सेड व्हाट टू whom एंड व्हाई, then he will be able to frame that whole thing, understand also, and accordingly frame back, right? So these 5 steps are very very significant. So here we have given a small example in order to understand all the 5 steps well, right? Like I'm saying, the sentence is supposingly, the cat sat on the mat. Very typical one which we use. If you have done it in class 10th, you've seen that these kind of sentences we've been using for the NLP process also. So इसमें से tokens बना दिए. Everything is a token. The cat sat on the mat. Fine. So now you have to see कि the क्या है, cat क्या है, sat क्या है, on क्या है. सबको वो फाइंड आउट करेगा और फिर उसमें से आपका सेंटेंस का मीनिंग भी निकालेगा, एवरीथिंग। अब सिंटैक्सिंग में उसने पार्सिंग और ग्रामर चेक किया, तो उसने बोला कि अच्छा भाई, सब्जेक्ट मेरा कैट है, वर्ब मेरा सैट है, और जो फ्रेज जिसको हम बाद में पूरा पिक करेंगे फॉर मीनिंग, दैट इज ऑन द मैट, यू मे से द प्रेडिकेट, है ना? सो दैट इज हाउ द सिंटैक्स एनालिसिस इज बीइंग डन. नाउ द सिमेंटिक, कि उसने मीनिंग को एक्सट्रैक्ट किया. भाई कैट हैज बीन आइडेंटिफाइड एज एन एनिमल, वो एक एक्शन परफॉर्म किया उसने, ही सैट ऑन इट एंड माय ऑब्जेक्ट इज माय मैट, जिसके ऊपर वो सैट किया, एक्शन उसने परफॉर्म किया जिसके साथ. तो ये उसका मीनिंग उसने समझा. फिर उसने कॉन्टेक्स्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग करी. अगर इट वॉज नॉट द कैट इन इट सैट ऑन द मैट, अगर वो ऐसा सेंटेंस होता तो वो प्रीवियस सेंटेंस से ढूंढ के निकालता कि भाई ईट क्या है. ठीक है. दैट इज द डिस्कोर्स इंटीग्रेशन. एंड देन द pragmatic analysis is the real world interpretation of the thing overall happening, that describing the cat's action, we are really accordingly creating a conversation कि कैट वहां बैठा था, फिर कैट ने ऐसा किया, फिर कैट ने ये किया. तो आई एम रियली टॉकिंग अबाउट अ सिनेरियो लाइक दिस. तो उसने ये इस चीज का इन्फरेंस निकाला है. तो pragmatic analysis talks about that. Okay, that's how the steps have been explained. Now let's see a application, like exactly. Of course, we have been talking about that NLP सब जगह पे यूज हो रहा है, बट लेट्स सी जहाँ पे सबसे ज्यादा हम इस चीज को वर्कआउट करते हैं. अच्छा, there's one more thing here before I move on to what I was thinking of, which is the chatbots. Okay, the major application on a smaller scale, we can do it. We can make a chatbot also and see how things work. And Bhuman, if you remember, we have done that, a smaller aspect of it using the Google Dialogflow in our club activity also. है ना? So that is something which we work in this particular chapter too. But before that, this is also a very important aspect of human language uh, for the machine to understand. Otherwise, he will not be able to interpret the meaning properly and decipher things properly, which is the sentiment analysis versus emotion detection. They sound similar, but they are not. ठीक है. तो मशीन को इमोशन ऑफ द सेंटेंस एंड सेंटिमेंट ऑफ द सेंटेंस दोनों को टेक केयर करते हुए करना है. एंड दीज आर एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड एरियाज ऑल्सो, where we talk about the blogs or the posts or the comments being done on various blogs and posts. Machine or AI is detecting them, whether it is a positive note or a negative note or a neutral sentiment it has. ठीक है. तो इससे वो हेट पोस्ट्स ढूंढ के निकाल रहे हैं. दे आर कैचिंग होल्ड ऑफ द पर्सन हु इज क्रिएटिंग दोज पोस्ट्स एंड दे मे क्वेश्चन देम because they are, or they could be those troublemakers which country is not wanting to be behaving like that. ठीक है ना. सो इमोशन डिटेक्शन एंड सेंटिमेंट एनालिसिस का डिफरेंस अंडरस्टैंड करना थोड़ा जरूरी है in that aspect. Sentiment analysis I would talk about first because it is talking about an overall emotion of the text. Fine. And the overall tone. That's very important. कि positively said sentence, and I mean it's very easy to correlate it with a statement of a teacher for a child. Now in the class, the way I speak to you, maybe my tone will tell you whether I am having a positive feeling towards you or a negative feeling towards you or a neutral feeling towards you. No, nothing negative, nothing positive. Very, very neutral. So that is basically which is your sentiment analysis. है ना. कि हम बोलते हैं कि भाई आज घर का माहौल बहुत ऐसा थम सा है, और इट इज अ वेरी हैप्पी और जोवियल और वेरी पॉजिटिव वाइब इज देयर. है ना. सो इस तरह की चीज जो हम एनालाइज करते हैं फ्रॉम द टेक्स्ट ऑल्सो, वी कैन find out that the machine has to do it, because we can do that. If I'm reading a paragraph, I can easily make out from that sentence, from those sentences or the written text, that what kind of a tone or emotion it has. So ये चीज मशीन को भी करना है. फाइन. तो सेंटिमेंट एनालिसिस के अंदर वो ये चीज फाइंड आउट करता है कि ओवरऑल इमोशन और टोन क्या है, whether it is a positive thing or a negative thing. जिसका मेन एप्लीकेशन इज सोशल मीडिया और कस्टमर चैट्स. So you know that the customer is happy or the customer is unhappy. Like रेटिंग में, है ना. रेटिंग में जैसे हम लोग Amazon पे कोई चीज खरीद रहे हैं, एंड आई चेक द रेटिंग्स, एंड रेटिंग्स के अंदर यू सी 1 2 3 4 5, है ना? सो हैप्पी कस्टमर्स एंड अनहैप्पी कस्टमर्स का भी उन्होंने एक ग्राफ दे रखा है। तो बेस्ड ऑन वहां पे तो चलो हम लोग डायरेक्टली वी रेट इट ओनली, सो वी नो दैट इफ इट इज 5 इट इज वेरी गुड, इफ इट इज 4 इट इज लिटिल लेस, like that if it is 1 it is poor. But otherwise, if you are not having that exact rating given and you are writing in text in terms of your reaction, so आपने उसको उस तरीके से लिखा है, so the machine should be able to interpret from there too. Okay, now moving a little further, emotion detection is basically distinct emotions को, ठीक है? It is a positive tone में है वो चीज, but how much, I mean, is it a very happy tone or it is a little satirical thing or what? ठीक है, तो एंगर है उसके अंदर दिखाया हुआ, या हैप्पीनेस है, या वेरी चाइल्डिश इमोशन और अ वेरी इमोशनल इमोशन, he say that it's a very emotional note, could be positive or could be negative but a very emotional one, right? So distinct emotion को जब वो identify करता है, that I'm calling it as a emotion detection, and I would say that is more difficult maybe, sentiment analysis करना easier है ना? सो इसमें एआई को मुझे ट्रेन करना पड़ता है विद स्पेसिफिक इमोशनल टोकन्स, with specific words which you'll use for to depict anger of a person or happiness of a person. All those words which are there maybe in the dictionary that has to be given to the AI model to train. ठीक है ना? तो इट्स easier. सेंटिमेंट चीज को आई थिंक निकालना, ओवरऑल मूड को समझना मशीन के लिए आई बिलीव थोड़ा ज्यादा डिफिकल्ट, मोर ट्रेनिंग इज रिक्वायर्ड बिकॉज वर्ड्स इसमें इमोशन डिटेक्शन में आप वर्ड्स सारे दे दो उसको तो वो कर लेगा उसको, में सेंटिमेंट में ओवरऑल सेंटेंस में बहुत ज्यादा हो सकता है किसी ने वो वर्ड्स यूज नहीं करे, बट द वे द सेंटेंस हैज बीन फ्रेम्ड, विथ those exclamatory marks or those pauses or whatever when you're speaking also, you may not use those harsh words or negative words that much, but the way you speak, or at times even the facial expression also, it is you can easily make out from a friend's face or जस्ट एक हाँ या ना उसने जिस तरीके से जवाब दिया है, सो यू नो कि भाई उसका आज मूड पॉजिटिव है या नेगेटिव है या हैप्पी है या क्या है. सो दैट वे डिटेक्टिंग द इमोशंस फॉर एआई मॉडल ऑल्सो, द ट्रेनिंग इज हार्ड, लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स हैव टू बी फेड इनटू हिम. ओके, सो इसमें जैसे यूज केस में उन्होंने दिया एनालाइजिंग द यूजर रेटिंग्स और सर्वेज, एंड सेंटिमेंट एनालिसिस में हमने बोला कि मॉनिटरिंग द सोशल मीडिया और कस्टमर चैट्स. ओके, so that is also something which is a significant aspect. Now let's move on to this particular thing, the conversational AI, which is my chatbot. We all understand the text-based or voice-based interactions which we do with the machine nowadays. Any particular device, I may call that, or overall the system itself. So you are conversing with the machine, right? So when you're conversing with the machine, it is behaving like a chatbot. So I'm saying hi, he's saying hello. I'm saying how are you? He's saying okay, how are you? I'm saying good morning. He's responding by good morning. So that kind of a conversation when is happening with the machine, I'm calling it a chatbot. They are using overall the artificially intelligent machine model, of course, NLP, of course, machine learning, because it is, if it is improvising, then I would say it is a machine learning model too. And it is understanding the queries of the user and responding accordingly. And we see that nowadays in various customer support areas, websites may even in other aspects also. These e-commerce websites, हर जगह पे है customer support. Or you go for even for any kind of a booking. I mean, all customer support only, whether the customer is a patient or a customer is a ticket buyer or a buyer of any other product, they all come under customer support itself. Okay, so that kind of a thing we have when we talk about chatbots. Now, in the case of chatbots, there are two categories which we mainly talk about. One is the rule-based and one is the AI-powered. So every chatbot is not an AI agent. Okay, why? Because there are rule-based chatbot also. Rule-based के अंदर you have predefined rules for the answer. लाइक हमने भी जो डायलॉग फ्लो में किया था दैट वाज मोर सो अ रूल बेस्ड थिंग हुई, बिकॉज मैंने उसको बता दिया कि भाई ये वर्ड तुम्हारे पास आएगा तो ये जवाब आप दोगे। ठीक है, सो इट्स नॉट रियली लर्निंग मच फ्रॉम दैट। इफ इट इज लर्निंग देन ओनली आई विल से दैट इट इज यूजिंग द बेसिक पावर ऑफ एमएल एंड इम्प्रोवाइजिंग विद टाइम। ठीक है, सो मेजरली वी as of now, as at this level, maybe we can talk about or we can create rule based chatbots more. AI powered is something which is a difficult task to do. But when you are making a machine learn with time, improvise with time, पहली बारी में वो confuse हो गया, वो नहीं आंसर कर पाया यूजर को, but then with further training और practice के बाद it is able to do it. Applicable for humans also, similarly machines also. So अगर ये चीज हो रही है, so I would call it an AI powered chatbot. Otherwise, I would call it a basic rule based chatbots. They are chatbots because they are doing conversation with humans एंड रिस्पॉन्डिंग टू द क्वेरीज ऑल्सो, बट दे आर रूल बेस्ड। हमने पहले से ही उसमें सारी चीजें फीड कर दी है, प्री डिफाइंड, कि इफ यूजर सेज दिस तो यू विल आंसर लाइक दिस, कुछ समझ में नहीं आया तो यू आंसर लाइक दिस। ठीक है, नाउ व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट chatbot also, this is how we have technically given you the differences in terms of description, advantages, limitations and use cases, कि कहाँ पे रूल बेस्ड चैटबॉट्स आप देखते हो, कहाँ पे एआई पावर्ड चैटबॉट्स आप देख सकते हो। ठीक है, they have not named any specific thing, but they have given you the areas where these kind of chatbots are generally being used. Like rule-based chatbots are generally being used for the customer service tasks. If you open a what Healthians or Thyrocare ka setup, their website, or you open maybe booking website, any kind of booking website for that matter, whether it's a बुक माई शो का है या फिर एलपीजी बुकिंग or anything for that matter. So there, you will see the chatbots are not that well versed. If you give any other context ka cheez, so he will not respond to you because it has been ruled, programmed for it. Okay. So availability in terms of advantages and other limitations also, it has been classified here, and it is again, I would say, important from your exam point of view, this difference, right? Moving further, it is a basic understanding of a structure of a chatbot, and it is not only a chatbot, it is any kind of an application which we talk about, a computerized application where you have a front end and a back end. Everywhere, wherever you have a front end, a back end, maybe a website also, what happens is the front end is basically what you see and you immediately communicate with. बट वो डेटा लेके आपसे डेटा लिया, उसके बाद इट गोज टू द सर्वर और द बैक एंड वेयर द एक्चुअल वर्क टेक्स प्लेस। ठीक है, सो फ्रंट एंड इज ओनली मेंट टू इंटरैक्ट, इट विल बी अ ब्यूटिफुल लुकिंग जीयूआई सेटअप। सो वहां पे वी आर मोर कंसर्न्ड अबाउट द यूजर इंटरैक्शन, हाउ गुड यू कैन डू दैट, राइट? सो दैट इज हाउ basic messaging format, look, feel, that all comes under the front end part. But the actual work is being done at the back end. वो डेटा लेके जाता है और वहां से जवाब लेके आ रहा है ना? So that is how we say the back end is where the hard work takes place. It operates the application logic and has enough memory to remember the earlier parts of the conversation as the dialogue continues. So constantly the front end is interacting with the back end, जहाँ पे आपके actual algorithms हैं, जहाँ पे आपके actual machinery है to handle that. Fine, and this is applicable for any application actually. But they have specifically given it for a chatbot also, so I thought of taking it up as part of the discussion. But as said, this is what is happening in a normal business application also, जहाँ पे maybe AI भी applicable नहीं है. Right? If I talk about a billing system of McDonald's, तो जो बिलिंग काउंटर पे जैसा आपको जीयूआई दिख रहा है कि वो वहां पे ऑर्डर ले रहा है यूजर से, और ऑर्डर लेके वो बेसिक कैलकुलेशन भी कर देगा तुमको वो फ्रंट एंड पे। ठीक है, लेकिन द एक्चुअल जहाँ पे वो जेकर डाके डेटा स्टोर हो रहा है, जहाँ से वो स्टॉक अपडेट कर रहा है कि ठीक है मेरे भाई 4 बंस थे, अब वो एक चला गया तो एक 3 रह गए, द स्टॉक इज बीइंग कॉन्स्टेंटली अपडेटेड, ये चीज कहाँ हो रही है? ये बैक एंड पे हो रही है जाके। फाइन, और यू आस्क द मेडिकल स्टोर समथिंग, तो वो अपना जाके पूरा बैकएंड चेक करता है, बट इन अ यूजर फ्रेंडली मैनर। तो जो जीयूआई पे दिख रहा है, यूजर इज इंटरेक्टिंग विद द जीयूआई, यूजर इज नॉट डायरेक्टली इंटरेक्टिंग विद द बैकएंड। उसको क्वेरीज नहीं आती, उसको पाइथन का कोड नहीं आता, या उसको नहीं पता कि भाई हाउ टू राइट द कोड टू एक्सट्रैक्ट द डेटा फ्रॉम द बैकएंड, द सर्वर। ठीक है, सो दैट इज वाई दे मेंटेन इट इन दैट manner that front end से user interact कर रहा है. Front end has to be very very user friendly. It should be good looking also. It should be interacting in a manner that the user is able to easily interact with the setup. But actual work is being done at the backend where the data is also being stored and the logic is also being built. If I talk about a chatbot as for that matter. Okay, so that was all about your NLP model. So here what we have to very significantly remembering are the phases of the NLP. एक्चुअल कि वो लेक्सिकल एनालिसिस कर रहा है, फिर सिंटैक्टिक है, फिर सेमांटिक है, इस तरीके से उसके सारे फेजेस हमें याद करने. ठीक है, बेसिक टर्म्स लाइक टोकनाइजेशन, सेगमेंटेशन, एंड व्हाट आर एंटिटीज इन एनएलपी मॉडल, व्हाट आर द रिलेशनशिप्स, ऑब्जेक्ट्स को अगर वो बोल रहे हैं तो वो क्या मीन कर रहा है एग्जैक्टली. ठीक है, तो दोज थिंग्स एंड chatbots types in the understanding also we have to think about the sentiment and emotion analysis, because that is something which is being done as part of the application of NLP models, which is very very commonly being used. Like chatbot is very commonly being used. Similarly, the emotional and sentiment analysis is also something which is very very commonly being used nowadays as an aspect of NLP model. Okay, so that overall completes the portion for this particular chapter. I'll be sharing the worksheet and the questions, more of MCQs and all, so that once you've gone through the material, you are able to solve them and see that how much you understand. Okay? Okay then. Bye bye. See you next class.